AKT Celebrity Reads. I'm your host, Alexis K. Tyler, and I'm not going to stay long. I just want to give you a quick message. If you want me to come back, you're going to have to donate. I see in the past few days, nobody has donated, and I know with all the people watching these videos and all the hits I get, somebody, I know that y'all can donate. And so I'm not going to share everything I get, but I will. This is very important. This is an emergency. Grandma Hustle, Nipsey's grandmother, and Nipsey are here. Grandma, I got all these. Let me show you some of these that are coming up. For some reason, okay, we get these cards here. Jay-Z came up. T.I. came up. T.I. doesn't have a card. Thank you, baby. Thank you, B Sharp, for sharing my Cash App. Hit my Cash App, bitch, and make it motherfucking clap, goddammit. Because I'm going to drop you a message from Granny. And I'm not going to, I have to write the rest of this down. This shit is so scary to me. It bothers me and it vexes my spirit. And these are who we are dealing with. These are the people and the organizations that we are dealing with. This is a set of Illuminati cards. And when I've been listening to Granny since yesterday, and I've been listening to the past few days she's been talking, and also the Queen. So we're still dealing with the Queen, and we are dealing with her son. The son and her son, King Charles, and the most powerful one that will take over is Princess Diana, oldest son. The oldest son is just like his father, and he is just like his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. You see that George Soros, we're dealing with the European Union. Here this is. Grandma is traveling right now. Grandma is overseas with her husband. They were actually on a cruise. And then she showed me her enjoying herself, living her best life with her husband. She's having a ball, as well as with Nipsey and her other relatives. And I've been thinking about her a lot lately, and I felt, well, I guess she doesn't have anything else to say. She's doing her thing. And then she says, oh, yes, I do. While she's been traveling with her husband, they are over there. She showed me a glacier and a barge, like a big ship that is traveling, but it's a cargo looking ship. It's long. And this wasn't the cruise ship I first saw her on. I think it's Princess. Is there a cruise ship company called Princess Cruises or Princess Airlines? Anything with the word Queen or Princess in it? Because she's showing me that, and she's showing me Europe. She's showing me the North Pole. We need to watch all of the European countries where we're dealing with a lot of ice up in the mountain, glaciers and water, Antarctica, and the North Pole. Something's going on with the North Pole and the secret government bases and underground military bases that are there in Antarctica, she said, and glacier melting, what they call global warming, is really man-made. They said it's so much, Granny is saying, so much her and Nipsey are saying. The grandmother is a scientist. The grandmother is brilliant. I really think she missed her calling in the physical body or didn't feel like she had the time and space. She was dedicated to her children and grandchildren. But the grandmother is a scientist. She's a mental scientist as well as a real scientist, deeper scientist, which mental science is still real. She's in the space, she's in the stars, as far as a degree scientist that studies science and medicine and numbers, because you see, she gave me the clock. One thing she said, I'm going to try to get to this as quickly as I can. And like I said, you don't donate, I'm not going to come back and tell you everything this woman is saying. She's absolutely brilliant. That's what we need to look at, Antarctica, and it's melting up there. She showed me back to the ship. There's she says, an embargo. So embargoes would also be dealing with treaties and trade overseas, and the European Union and the World Bank and the United Nations, the UN, dealing with, and the United States government dealing with trade, stocks, bonds, currencies, different forms of currencies, different forms of export, import, wheat, oil, grain, rice, and tariffs, stocks and bonds. Because there's a hearing going on right now, and I think what Sam Friedman has just been arrested or is ready to be arrested for crypto fraud. So they're breaking down that form of currency. And one reason I know they didn't like definitely black people knowing and Nipsey teaching it, because you could not track it at that time, 3-4 years ago, and people could get control financially. And they don't want black people, any people of color, to do that. They want more death and more war, which is coming right now. And Nipsey and the grandmother mentioned vaxes. I'm trying to figure out the nicest way to say it, but I'll get in trouble. Jabs. They're also talking about that. Food for oil, jabs for food, these different programs where you will see the military or the U.S. intervention or European intervention into African countries, Brazil, countries where there are Africans and people of color, that they create the crisis around oil and food and then biological warfare. It's so much she gets into that ties into this. She's mentioning flu strains. Oh boy, it's some of this stuff I can't really get too deep in on here. They're listening. They're creating viruses from dead tissue and getting the tissue of military soldiers that suffered from skin diseases, lesions, and different forms of cancer. Google is one of the companies that is fighting to get it so they can create new strains. That's all I'm going to say. You don't believe it? Go research it yourself. Grandma told me, Grannyhussle said they're up, and they've been up there in Antarctica with the other ETs and the UFOs that they'll tell you that are UFOs, where they're trading information, making new trade agreements, but also embargo treaties. That makes me also wonder, is that going to deal with legal issues and supply chain problems? And they were saying a month or so ago, the supply chain problem, the ship problem in California has been resolved, and they've removed all of the merchandise, the goods and services on the ships that have been trapped for maybe a year or so on the ships in California at the dock, the port. But I'm also seeing Savannah ports, different ports around the United States. But that's one of the main ones in California. I know in New York, I would check and see what are the other main ones where things are being imported, exported, and then transported by the truckers. So it's going to be a trucking problem. It's going to be a traveling problem with truckers and trucks being able to get the jobs and making the money they used to make, and a gasoline and an oil problem, maybe a hike, a crisis, and a water problem, along with crops and corn. You have to be careful about where you're getting the corn now, because a lot of this corn has no nutritional value. Why? Because it's cloned. It's not real. And I think some corn is used maybe as a derivative for certain gases. It's basically just sugar. It's an empty calorie vegetable now with no nutritional value. Hit my Cash App, bitch, and make it clap. Grandma's telling me that. She's showing me they're experimenting, and there's going to be a new strain of RSV, upper respiratory and viruses, that will be associated with other diseases like HIV and AIDS and the influenza real bad, and the flu. And the flu vaccine may not help, because some of the strains are new strains, mutated, that will be resistant to different antibiotics or treatments, and viruses will be resistant, and they talk. She showed me this. They talk to each other. They have an electromagnetic grid. They have a nucleus. They have the mitochondria, some of these do not. They're single-celled, or they say viruses don't live. They're not alive. But I'm seeing some of the bacteria that causes infections. Well, you know what? I'm going to even say this from what I'm seeing on an energetic level. Viruses do connect to the electromagnetic grid of different human beings or animals that they infect. And then they will drive the mind of the human being to connect to other people and pass it to them, or other people that already have the strain, because there is a technical overload of the brain and the central nervous system where the virus will take over the person's brain, hijack the cells, and then duplicate the cells by millions within 24 hours, like HIV. 24 to 48, 72 hours. They move very, very rapidly. And she said the meds that they give the people don't cure it. They're just taught to reduce the copy. Reduce the load by reducing the copying of the retrovirus. And the meds, if you look them up, because I don't have to make this up, start looking different ones up, look at the side effects. They are poisonous to the cell, and they're targeting people of color. So the person's literally walking around with a zombie, like a zombie. The cells are hijacked and being copied by a killer. They're slowly committing suicide. And this is a higher level of murder, where you can't blame anybody, because I don't even think you can sue all the pharmaceutical companies for all this stuff that they're taking, because I don't know what kind of releases you have to sign, or basically they're passing laws to protect themselves. So if you take these things, you're not going to be able to get a big settlement. And by the time you try to do it, you're going to die off and your family is going to take over. And most Black people do not fight for their relatives. I know, because I've talked to them, or they'll make 100 excuses to me as to why you can't do it. And one of the main ones is money. And even if you don't have the money, if you can read, if you can research, even if it's a little bit every day or a certain amount of hours every week, a lot of Black people on certain levels, not all the ones that are educated, but ones on a lower level, don't want to read, don't want to learn how to read, don't know how to research, don't want to learn, but you're coming to me talking about what happened to your loved one and were they murdered by the hospital, somebody else. And even if it was, or surgery or malpractice, they really don't want to do the work to pursue it, but you want me to confirm what you're saying. And I think it's pathetic. And it continues to happen because you don't want to go up against a machine. You feel like the machine is so big and you're one person and you're so small, and the other people in the family don't give a fuck. And these things go on and on and on. And they agree to be slaves trapped in the system instead of standing and fighting with the breath you have and the little bit of life you have. And Granny's telling me this is getting ready to get worse and come down. And you know what it ties to? What I've already said. And what Nipsey's already told me, and Dr. Sebi said, it's water world. This is the year of the water tiger. And a lot of catastrophes and diseases and pathogens will be passed through water. And with the melting and the drip drop and the tick-tock she is showing me of Antarctica and the North Pole, well, these things are going on. And she shows me military, even Russia, United States and Russia and other, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iraq, Iran, affecting Sudan, different other African countries, and Afghanistan. Also mentioned, I want to say war in Eritrea or Ethiopia. If somebody knows more about this or from there, let me know. Some type of secret war, or war that might be not be secret, just secret to us, that we don't know about. I have to look at international things to see what is going on in Ethiopia and Eritrea. And are there private hit squads or murders going over there with certain tribes that we don't know about? You're going into there. Sudan, Somalia, Afghanistan. And the ones on the top, like I mentioned the other day, U.S., Russia, Ukraine, China, and North Korea. And they're pointing to Hong Kong for some reason. So I don't know. This is as well as more catastrophes in the United States and the chains of islands getting ready to jump off. Okay. She's telling me about time. And when she talks about time, a lot of you physically think that because the queen is physically dead. No, they still talk to the queen. There's another dummy, or a one that stands in proxy for the queen. The queen is still talking. The queen is active because they see They constantly do blood rites and rituals on their dead, and they keep their dead close by. The physically dead is only a shell. George Bush is also combined with the Queen of England. They're all together. They get out of that body and they discuss the reptilian Draco agenda, the world domination agenda, with all of the higher ones that they let in place. Bezos, with Amazon, Musk, that now controls Twitter and is ready to hook you up to turn you to a cyborg with the brain mapping, like I had warned y'all about. And now we're seeing that that's available right now. And this is the agenda I'm telling you about: more loss, more population depopulation in 2023. And a lot of these will be foodborne and waterborne viruses and certain meds. And it's already happening in Atlanta now, because I looked at 11 Alive News today a few hours ago, and I am seeing that is a bad rise of RSV virus, and there's a shortage of blood. The Red Cross said they need more blood in Atlanta. Now, you all really don't know the secrets of blood magic and the power of blood rites, blood sigils, and blood rituals. And that's a lot of what's going on here when they collect that blood. You think they just collect that blood and just share it with you? Those, that's vampiric blood. And a lot of that they use to clone and make synthetic blood and byproducts for themselves, and to know you and know more about you than you know, and then unleash these things. That's what Grandma's also showing me. She's showing me the different levels of time. The different levels of time, and how this release is tying into FEMA and the Georgia Guidestones. When they were broken down, it also introduced you to a different level of time and a different frequency of time to vibrate through Georgia and the underground tunnels and cities you don't know about that move from here to New York to LA. All these areas and all the undesirables, which will be the blacks, the so-called blacks, that they want to reduce and also release the reptilian alien agenda that moves into the sun. The one sun that is now poisonous and releasing so much radiation because the field has been decimated. She told me that. That's what's happening within Georgia. The FEMA cough, I'm not going to go too deeply into this. This is what she said. That was all timed and programmed by them. That wasn't a stranger in an accident that imploded that, and also tied to the obelisk in Washington that is also an erect penis that comes from where? Egypt, which is in Africa. And you're dealing with the release of different pharaohs and the energy and entities associated with them that are going to flip on you, dealing with the Sphinx and the is that what we call it? The obelisk that looks like the tall penis with the pyramids on the top, the point on the top. We're dealing with that in the $1 bill and the New World Order. The eagle on the other side, which is a reflection of the Egyptian gods, and the other side, the all-seeing eye with the raised cap that has not been put in place to call forth their god, Satan, that has moved through the CERN portal and resurrecting their people and cloning, bringing those people back through the portal. They're getting ready to lower down the capstone on the pyramid that's coming from Egypt, where they ruled from Egypt to Rome and to the queen's throne. And now she has embodied, her and Bush and several other entities have embodied King George, who is racist as hell, along his son and other people above them in the kingdom. And he's working secretly with Biden to bring in what? And that goes back to what Nipsey's told me. We're dealing with Jim Jones, who was a CIA operative or possible secret agent. We are dealing with Freeway Ricky Ross and the Iran-Contra, Ollie North, Iran-Contra scandal, where they were selling the cocaine and putting it in LA that was full of disease and highly toxic chemicals, where they dropped down on purpose and gave it to one side of Ricky Ross. Why am I saying one side of Ricky Ross? Because from what grandma told me, and they are doing the cloning perfectly, you can be a synthetic humanoid being and a clone inside of your regular human body with the synthetic programming and the creation of a being that they can talk to, take outside of you through their machines and put it back inside of you. They programmed him. He said, I made up how to do crack and harden crack into rocks. No, he was told to do that with the other side of him, the dark side of him and the light side of him. And they were suppressing and controlling that through the technology they even had. They're bringing up Maxine Waters again. And that whole, remember they had that big congressional hearing that they dropped those drugs off on purpose and turned the coke into crack and used Freeway Ricky Ross to do it, to create the crack epidemic that spread from LA all the way down to the dirty South. And then it got hushed up and it didn't go anywhere because those people took payoffs. And a lot of them are cloned, but not in the way you think. And you see, they made a physical clone of Freeway Ricky Ross with the ex-police and rapper Rick Ross. So you have the dark side and the light side of Ricky Ross, who made a lot of money bragging about the lifestyle as a drug dealer, and he was never a drug dealer. While the real one that's from LA and became a multimillionaire and then put in jail to be hushed up in silence. And even Alex Jones was involved in trying to help him get released. And that was one of the first interviews that Rick Ross did, Freeway Ricky Ross, the original one that was easy to manipulate and handle. If he wasn't easy to manipulate and handle, he wouldn't have done what he done. Grandma Hustle then goes to say, and Nipsey agrees. You can look up what I am saying, even though this is an AKT Celebrity Reads. Two things, she said. The Iran-Contra and Ronald Reagan, who acted like he didn't know, and he did know because he's racist too. When they brought in the Spanish one, what he called Blandón, I think the last name is Blandón, as well as, I forgot the fat man that they murdered him. It was a white man that was a pilot. He was flying coke in and out of here and dealing with Bill Clinton at Mina Airport. They murdered him because he was, I think his first name is Larry. He was testifying about how much money he made flying the drugs in and out. Under the Reagan program and dealing with the Iran-Contras and Ollie North, who they agreed to do this and to sell the drugs. They raise their money for their secret agendas, which would bring in Rex 84. Rex 84, the King Alfred plan. It is in effect right now. This is what Grandma said. As that water's dripping from Antarctica. Okay, I've only received one donation here. And because of that, I'm not going to stay too much longer. I'm going to say this a little bit and I'm going to leave this alone because I don't feel comfortable with this shit anyway. That's been enacted and it's been enacted now. That, and I am going to warn you again. Anybody that lives near big bridges or in cities where these bridges are controlling large masses of water with levees, you better get the fuck out of that area. And I have told you, Nipsey mentioned these big bridges before. Why? Because you're going to see something similar to Hurricane Katrina. If you go do your research, and I was looking before I came on here, they have erased a lot of the evidence and a lot of the documentaries and information off of YouTube. Hurricane Katrina was not an accident. The levees were exploded, and the levees had been exploded before. I think it also tied to Mississippi, the Mississippi River. And then in the early 1900s, it was in the 1920s. And it was a racial explosion. to help exterminate and kill and get rid of black people and get them off their land in New Orleans and make them lose their property and their houses, and then had FEMA come in and give them trailers that were full of poison and that were full of asbestos. These are facts. You can go look these things up that I'm saying. Those people got very sick and developed all forms of cancers. A lot of those people are dead. And then some physically dead snipers raised up to me and told me they were sent through private military contractors to snipe people on the bridge. After they used them, of course, and there were military people there, and of course the ones that dealt with, because you can see how George Bush acted when it happened. And then was it Mayor, the black, so-called black mayor, with his undercover sellout, dick in a booty ass, sat there and would not put the blame on himself, and they were shifting the blame from the mayor to the governor to Bush. Then Bush shifts it around and shifts it back there. This dirty ass nigga, this dirty, light-skinned, happy, that's motherfucking bald-head ass motherfucking nigga was paid off and a part of the secret order. He don't give a fuck about black people. He didn't before that happened. He didn't do it when that happened. He don't give a fuck now. He got his pay. He's in the order. I bet you if we look this man up and find him up, and find him, see what he's doing, I bet this man is not suffering like those regular black people suffered in New Orleans. It was not because of rain and the levee being old and bursting. There are even white people, there are older white people who said they heard the pop, pop, pop. They heard the boom, the explosion of the levee. Grandma said it's going to be some real bad water storms hitting the U.S. right now. They're starting right now, and snowstorms and freezing and blizzards and death and power outages and food shortages and grain shortages and wheat shortages and gasoline and oil. And it's all on purpose with their secret weather control programs. But before it was drying up life of Key, it was also exploded as well, or imploded as well. So the explosion, the bursting of the levees that you saw, 2005, that was the second time they did it, when they want to destabilize the blacks there, take their properties. And then I have to look at them trying to find it. Who owned that property, and did it go to any casinos or any big corporations that they wiped them out, moved them out of there, gave them their little checks, and then others took over? You see, New Orleans really ain't what it used to be. The areas where the flooding and the dam was exploded and burst, I have to look it up. Just, I don't think it's what it used to be. And a lot of black people were fucked over, and other people moved in and discriminate against them. And there's still, from what I've been told, a lot of racism. And even the level of spirituality, there's more white folks into root working and more white witches down there of people of other races. Those things are not owned and controlled in the heart of the so-called black people, which are black Indian Native Americans that are the indigenous owners of the land, not black slaves, but the original black Indian or dark Indian that's so-called a black that came from overseas. That's not true, came from Africa. No. Those indigenous Native Americans were right there. If you look at the accounts of Columbus, Christopher Columbus, who said he found America, you couldn't have exploded it, found it because you saw people here, and he was talking about how Coca-Cola, like copper colored they were. They were not white Indians. There are different groups of Indians, and some of those that they call the $5 Indians are not really Indians. Those are the white man's bastards. If y'all look this stuff up, you see, hit my cash up, bitch. Hit my cash up, make it clap. Now, I don't know why this one dropped, what he has to do with this, but we know he is one of their sons. Him and T.I. and P. Diddy. All the ones that was involved with Nipsey at the time and involved his assassination, you look at them. I don't have to tell you them all. You can look at them, who he was managed by, who did this for him, who did that for him, who was in his camp. They're in the entertainment, and they're actresses and actors inside of that industry. And they had something to do with this as well as the 60s. So these people also have political power, and they are protected by that structure, and they want to experience what we experience. They are the hidden hand, and they are the gatekeepers for the niggas to get in and out of there, and they have to do strange thing for a piece of change. And you're going to do it too if you get a goddamn deal. Blood it in and blood it out. And the boule niggas that are the buffer for the elite that run this fake world and fake society. Time has changed. Time has speeded up. Time has imploded on itself. And viruses do not work on linear time. Like Grandma says, they work on quantum time. They work on space time, planetary time, and star system time that you're not taught about. This time you see now, that's why do you think everything moves so fast now? The whole day moves so fast now because they control time and the different levels and measurements of it that you don't know. Grandma's looking at all of these things. Absolutely fascinating woman, incredible woman, as she's traveling with her husband and other ancestors, and she's having a ball. Said, oh, really? What you say, Shelley? Land and insurance is so expensive in New Orleans. The natives can't afford it, and that's what they wanted, and to send them into camps and to kill them off with the food, the water, and the resources. This is all deliberate. The implosion of the economy, the recession moving in, where a lot of forecasters are saying this is worse. It's going to be worse in 2008. And I saw it happen. This is not just some fluke. It was all designed. Do you really think these people would allow this to happen without their control? All these things are planned. All these things are put in place for a reason because they want to control the world. And they feel like in order for them to do it, they have to reduce as many people of color as possible with famine, sickness, fake cures, creating viruses and diseases. And they're actually getting them from your ancestors and from other people and then re-engineering them because they have your blood. They have your pee, they have your tissues, they have everything of yours. He said, watch the food because you need to start going outside your area and getting your food. Because they will deliver a certain type of food with a certain type of chemistry and designer food that attaches to your cell and rearranges the cell in a certain area. And then in the other area, the people get a safer group of food. That's not going to do to them what it does to you. The money, she said, and the frequency will diminish. The value for the paper money will go down. The frequency will go down. It already is. Inflation is deliberately to go up, to cave in the barrier. And then they're saying now they're stopping. The U.S. is stopping printing money. They're stopped printing money because they said that will reduce and control inflation. Because constantly flooding the economy with stimulus and continue to print money creates inflation and devalues the money. So now, which you need to watch that because now they have said they don't stop printing. That means you're getting ready to institute something else. And Granny now is above it all. She has not left the earth plane. They leave, they circle, they come back. She says, I'm at the top of the world. I'm up here at the top of North Equator. And so I have to go get my globe or buy one because her and her grandson are very scientific, I see. So, they talked about it, and his brother talked about it. I think the mother mentioned, Nipsey was a little nerd and a genius. He was in special schools, I think, while he was under 12. He was very intelligent. And his brother spoke at the memorial of him taking old parts, just supposedly junk parts, and building his first computer at 12. He has that type of brain. The grandmother has that type of brain, and his mother has that type of brain. So that clearly goes into his New Orleans side, as well as some European and Native American on that side. I don't know what all is on that side, but also dealing with the brilliant father and the very, very intelligent father, and the African side in the Eritrea and Ethiopia. These people are in the cradle of civilization. We know, even scientists said, if there was a Garden of Eden, it would be in Ethiopia, and the first Bible is Ethiopia, which is in Africa, the cradle of civilization. Okay, we have to look at these things. The blood of people. Whenever I read someone that is physically dead, who they really are and what they are suppressing and who is really inside of them and on them and with them will surface. I say that so many people underestimated Hermes. Excuse me. I guess they really didn't pay him any attention. They looked at Nipsey. They assassinated Nipsey. And they underestimated Nipsey. And he clearly felt the need to get in the game for protection, or to get his ideas through, to get his projects through. And in many ways he was. But then, with 60s, the main saying with them is that you don't become a 62, you kill a 60. All the jealousy, the treachery, and the backstabbing in his own family and his own brotherhood. That is one of the sciences. You kill one of your own to rise. It didn't go that way this time, because this man has even risen to a higher level of his godhood, along with his grandmother, who went over to protect him and to be with him. And she is the feminine side. So I'm dealing with the masculine and I'm dealing with the feminine. This woman is incredible. I don't think many people really knew what the grandmother was, and what the grandmother was clearly hiding, and what the grandmother is now, that she is raised up to her power. She's on her throne while she guards her grandson. I'm getting cold chills all over, and I have the heat on. It was a little warm in here. I just got cold because there's so many of them. And so many things she's saying that I do not feel comfortable. Even when I am telling you, I do not feel comfortable. And yeah, I'm a psychic medium, and I will say this is for entertainment purposes only, but I will say to you, the things I have mentioned, almost everything I have told you is fact. This is not something I think, I feel what she's saying. I know this is true because I've gone over this before, and you can look up Rex 84. The King Alfred plan. You can look up Ollie North under Reagan and the Iran-Contra, tying to Freeway Ricky Ross and the Coke sales in LA, where they introduced that shit and dumped that shit over there. And he said it was all a part. Grandma said it was all a part of the King Alfred plan. You can look these things up. And then New Orleans, she says, this is getting ready to happen again. I'm going to look at bridges. And when you release that water, wherever those storms are, and they may even be in an area where white people live, certain groups of white people, not elite ones, maybe ones they want to get rid of, or what they call poor white trash. Look at it. I don't know if it's going to come back to New Orleans. I don't feel that strongly right now. They've reinforced that, and they've gotten rid of a lot of the niggas, the undesirable. Actually, they either, if it wasn't them, it was their granny or grandfather. Somebody actually owned those houses and properties. They want to flood it out to get the land. That's also saying this is about land, the millions of dollars of land, and to redevelop it, redistribute it, and sell it. And I'm wondering where casinos. Y'all let me know if you find out, because I haven't been able to look at it yet. What popped up most in those areas? And who owns that? I think you can easily look this stuff up. I just don't have time right now. There's so much they're hitting me with, and I got to come back with another very powerful reading on a baby, where his grandmother asked me to expose this and do this reading on his baby that physically died during the Thanksgiving holiday. Was murdered, basically, but they're covering it. So I'm going to introduce this to you so you all can look this up and see what you find. But then again, I don't even think there's a lot on it in public. It's so sad. And I still haven't gotten completely into that. I've been talking to the baby. So only the baby can tell me, since nobody else will tell me. And the grandmother that paid me through the reading was not present. He was with his father and his father's people and basically fucking murdered. We're going to get into that when I come back. Again, hit my Cash App, make it clap. For I'm seeing, and what my assistant has told me, people are listening in here, but they're not donating. So I'm not going to continue to put myself at risk. Thank you, Kim G, and thank you for your donation. I love you. You always have my back. You always donate what you can when you can, and I appreciate every dime. You said, did she mention the grand solar flash is supposed to be here this year? We're at the end of the year. The year will be over in a couple of weeks. So it's supposed to be here this year? In the next couple of weeks? Because that's all we got left of the year. Again, I'm not going to get into I'm not getting into everything this lady says. So if you believe that and that was told to you, you go with it. I'm not gonna do it. Y'all don't appreciate me, then I'm not gonna appreciate you. I'm not gonna tell you everything this lady's saying. Because the stuff she's saying is so deep, and I'm not gonna keep giving it away for free. So if you said it's supposed to be here, I guess it better hurry its ass on up, because we got only 2 weeks left in the motherfucking year. It ain't after December, it ain't no more of the goddamn year. So shit, the year over. We're in the last goddamn month. And the solar flash still supposed to motherfucking hit. Shit. I don't know what to tell you. And if you don't donate, I'm not asking her all your questions. Because she's really giving me enough to keep me busy. You say I'm from New Orleans. Thank you. Somebody from New Orleans. Thank you, Shelley. I'm from New Orleans, live in Atlanta. When I go home, it doesn't feel like home. It ain't, because they raped it. I try to literally take the soul of the land and the soul of the people out of it. It's a time, a lot of people from New Orleans came to Atlanta, and they gave me their checks, and they came here and tell me, did you hear what I'm saying to you about them peoples in them trailers that got sick and died or is very sick? Shelly M, do you know anything what I'm talking about them FEMA trailers filled with asbestos and poison? Did you hear anything about that? Do you know anything about that, Shelly M? You said New Orleans is all white in areas with, yes, they're originally Black Indian, baby. The indigenous folks wasn't white. And so who government insurance companies ripped my family? Oh, you see what I'm saying? Oh, I wish you could tell me about that. So what happened, Shelley? Did they take your family's property and land when you said they ripped you off? What happened? Okay, I'm going back up now, because when I'm talking, I don't look in there because I need to focus on the spirits. I don't look in there. I'm just looking now. You said as a Mississippi, you own it now. The Mississippi River drying up. Yes, and then Shelley said her family. Shelley M said all her family lost their homes. Okay, I'm just now seeing this. Okay, so thank you for the confirmation. Started with Daddy Bush. Well, it really didn't start with Daddy Bush. Daddy is a member of the Skull and Bones at Yale or Harvard. And his father, and they were big in oil and passed down from the secret society. No, the first one is not the daddy. The first one is here. Let me see. Get this card because it fell out. Literally, I walked by my dresser, the dresser that Granny wanted to check out, and it fell. That was one of the cards that fell. It didn't start with Daddy Bush. It started with this one. Get it right now. That's who it started with. Adam Weishaupt. Okay? And then it moved out from there. And George Washington is one of them too, who also helped to steal land and conquer the Moors and become the president. He was not the first president. The one before it was a Moor, or so-called black man. And there were several presidents before him. And some of the Moors actually sold each other out, sold our people out. See, can you see this clearly? That's who you need to look at, honey. It didn't start with Daddy Bush. Daddy Bush became a member of the club. They are handpicked to help rule the world and control everybody. That's who it started with, honey. Anyway, I'm going to go. I'll talk to y'all later on.